Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Maple Grove Scripture Reading Podcast. You ever notice that there are fire-breathing dragons that show up across almost every major mythology? And they're from cultures that had absolutely no contact with each other. Like Norse mythology has a massive serpent gnawing at the roots of the world. Chinese mythology has great dragons associated with water and chaos. Ancient Mesopotamian mythology had a chaos dragon slain by the creator god in the very act of making the world. European folklore has fire-breathing serpents that coil around mountains and can't be killed by ordinary weapons. The stories aren't identical, all their details vary, but the shape is consistent across all of them. You've got this vast serpentine creature connected to water or fire or both, representing a kind of power that only the highest authority can manage. Whatever's behind that, there's something in the human story across all of it that understood that there is a creature like this. And that creature's name in the Bible is Leviathan. So last time we were in chapter 41, verses 1 through 11, and God introduced Leviathan and asked Job a series of questions that he couldn't really answer. Can you fish for it? Can you make a pet of it? Can you fill its hide with harpoons and then try laying a hand on it? No one is fierce enough even to rouse it. And then God turned the whole thing. If no one can stand before Leviathan, then who can stand before me? Everything under heaven belongs to me. Well, today we're going to finish chapter 41, verses 12 through 14, and God is going to describe what Leviathan actually is. So let me read through it. I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength, and its graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields, tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They are joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from its mouth. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. The folds of its flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. Its chest is hard as rock, hard as a lower millstone. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make it flee. Sling stones are like chaff to it. A club seems to it but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of the lance. Its undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. It makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening wake behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Before we walk through this, let me take a minute on the background for Leviathan, because it matters for how we read what we just heard. The name Leviathan means something like writhing one or twisting one. The Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament from around the 2nd century BC, translates Leviathan in this chapter not as crocodile, but as drakon, or dragon. When the translators who were closest to the ancient world, who spoke both languages and understood both cultures, went to find the Greek word for what God is describing in Job 41, that's what they landed on. They landed on dragon. The crocodile identification is much more recent. 17th century scholar named Samuel Bochart proposed it in around the time of the Enlightenment, an era when biblical scholars were trying to make scripture more scientifically defensible by connecting it to known natural species. And that impulse isn't wrong. But in this case, I don't think the description in the text cooperates super well. Crocodiles don't breathe fire. Their scales, although they're impressive, aren't impenetrable to every weapon ever made. The description in these verses go beyond any known animal, and I think that's deliberate, and it is definitely by a significant margin. Leviathan also appears in several other places in the Old Testament, and none of them are describing a reptile that you could find in the Nile. In Psalm 74, God is praised for crushing the heads of Leviathan in an act of cosmic power at creation. In Isaiah 27, the defeat of Leviathan is a future eschatological event, something that God will do in that day when he sets everything right. In Job chapter 3, verse 8, when Job is at his lowest point and cursing the day he was born, he invokes those who are ready to rouse Leviathan as the most powerful curse imaginable. And if you remember, we looked at that. There's a close parallel in Ugaritic mythology, the Canaanite texts that were discovered in modern Syria. They describe a sea dragon called Lotan. Linguistically, it's the same name as Leviathan, a creature the god Baal defeats in the act of ordering the world. The ancient audience hearing Job 41 would have recognized the name and understood that immediately, like this is that creature, the chaos dragon, the thing at the edge of the created order. So what is Leviathan? Well, the honest answer is that the Bible doesn't reduce it to a single, zoological category. What it is consistently is the creature that represents the furthest edge of raw power and chaos in the created order, the thing that God alone can manage. And in Job 41, God spends an entire chapter describing it in detail to a man who has been demanding that God justify himself. So with that in mind, look at how the description opens. He says, who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? A double coat of armor, doors of its mouth, fearsome teeth. God is not describing something that you can approach. And then he talks about the scales. Its back has a rows of shields tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. They're joined fast to one another. They cling together and cannot be parted. So these aren't scales in the way a fish has scales. These are shields. The word used is the same word used for the battle shields that warriors carry. And they're joined so tightly together that no air passes between them. So whatever's underneath is completely protected. No spear tip, no arrow, no blade can find a gap because there are no gaps. The creature is entirely enclosed in its own armor, which nothing human-made can penetrate. And then comes the fire. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze and flames dart from its mouth. 4 verses on fire and smoke. So God kind of lingers here for a little bit. Fire from the mouth, smoke from the nostrils, breath that sets coals ablaze. It's not a description of an actual crocodile because that doesn't do any of those things. It's a description of something at the edge of what the natural world can contain, or maybe even beyond it. And God is describing it to Job. The God Job has been demanding an explanation from, the God Job has been pressing with his case and his pain and his argument, is the God who made this, who looks at Leviathan the way a person looks at something they built. And then there's the strength and terror. That strength resides in its neck and dismay goes before it. Dismay goes before it. Before you've even made contact with it, before you've tried anything, the thing coming toward you has already broken something in you. The word dismay here carries the sense of collapse, of things falling apart in advance of the actual encounter. Leviathan doesn't just defeat what comes at it, it defeats you before you get there. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. Not ordinary people, the mighty, the ones who've trained for exactly this kind of situation, who are supposed to hold their ground. When Leviathan rises, they retreat. Nobody stands before it. Then God goes through the entire weapon inventory of the ancient world. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotted wood. Arrows don't make it flee. Sling stones are like chaff to it. A club seems to it but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of the lance. Sword, spear, dart, javelin, iron, bronze, arrows, sling stones, club, lance, everything. The full list of what human military power could bring to any encounter in the ancient world. None of it registers. Iron is like straw, bronze like rotten wood. Arrows don't make it move. It laughs at the lance. It laughs. That's the same word used at the war horse back in chapter 39 that would charge into battle. The war horse laughed at fear. Leviathan laughs at the weapons that were built to cause fear. Nothing Job has, nothing any person has ever made is relevant to this creature. And then he describes the water. It makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening wake behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Even the water is changed by its presence. The depths boil, the sea churns, and the wake behind it, the water that it has moved through, glitters white, as if the deep itself has gone gray. Leviathan doesn't just pass through the world quietly. Everything behind it is marked. And then God closes the whole description with 2 lines. He says, nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. Nothing on earth its equal. Not the lion, not the war horse, not even Behemoth. Leviathan is the end of the list, the creature without fear, because there's nothing in its world that has given it reason to be afraid. And then there's the last line, king over all that are proud. Job has been doing something for all of these chapters. He's been pressing his case. He's been insisting that his suffering is unjust, that God owes him an explanation, that his innocence creates a claim on God's accounting. He's been doing this with a kind of confidence, a certainty that if he could only get his case heard, things could be sorted out. And that's not nothing. God himself will say in chapter 42 that Job spoke what is right. But underneath the right things that Job said, there was still probably always a little bit of a pride that assumed that Job's view of things was sufficient to evaluate God's management of the universe. And God ends his speech to Job by showing him the king of pride, the creature that towers over everything haughty in all of creation. And then Job will respond, and he's not going to argue. He doesn't press his case one more time. No, he repents. But we're going to get there next time. We're going to move into chapter 42, the first 6 verses, and we'll get into the final words of Job in the book as we are nearing a close. Hope you have a great day. We'll talk again soon. God bless.